Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We have Los Angeles, San Francisco, Phoenix, Dallas, Chicago, and St. Louis on today with us. Before we get started, we will all introduce ourselves so you know who is answering the questions. I'm Julie Hedrick. I'm the APFA National President.
I'm Josh Black, APFA National Secretary.
I'm Eric Harris, APFA National Treasurer.
I'm Brian Walsh, APFA Contract Chair. And if you have any follow-up questions after the town hall, you can send questions to contract@apfa.org.
Hi, I'm Linda Hartling, APFA Scheduling Chair. The email, scheduling@apfa.org if you have any questions.
I am Paul Hartshorn Jr. I'm with the Communications Department at APFA. I can be reached at communications@apfa.org.
Hi, I'm Kathy Sharp. I'm the APFA Health Chair. If you have any questions, please email me at help@apfa.org.
Hi, I'm Belia Pexon, the IOD Chair. If you have any questions, you can reach me at iod@apfa.org.
Hi, I'm Larry Salas, and I'm APFA National Vice President.
Thank you, everyone. Before we get started today, we want to talk to you a little bit about Tuesday's announcement. It was a devastating day for us here, for all of you I know also who are joining with us today. The announcement of 14,000 overage for our flight attendants came as a surprise to all of us. We knew that the demand had dropped off and that the bookings were not looking good, but we did not expect a number like 14,000. We were surprised and, as I said, devastated. What we are doing today, more than anything, is we are pushing for the payroll support program to be extended. We can stop these furloughs from happening October 3rd if this payroll support is extended. And what we need all of you to do that are tuning in today is to call your congressional representatives and tell them your story. Tell them that you work for this our airline and that they're furloughing 8,099 flight attendants. That number is still hard to even say. We need you to email, we need you to call every day. We will be putting out more information about pickets, about rallies, to get Congress's attention and to get the White House's attention. We just sent a letter off today to President Trump to make him realize really what's happening at American Airlines today and how many flight attendants and actually American Airlines employees are being furloughed because the payroll support program has not been extended. So please, after the call your Congress, congressional representatives. We will go through a lot of questions today. We have hundreds actually right now, so I know we're not going to be able to answer all of them. But we put out a question and answer document on the APFA hotline yesterday, and at the bottom of the document is a hyperlink to our guide that has even more answers for those of you who are being furloughed. Please make sure to check that out. We've also put it on the front page of our website so that you can have your answers there in print. We'll keep updating the guide as we get more questions in, and especially today we've gotten quite a few questions. This is our second session today, and so we'll update with anything we can to give you all the answers you need. We'll get started because, as I said, we've got hundreds of questions, so we want to get going on those. One of the first questions we have is, will there be more leaves offered? Now that we know what the overage is there going to be another leave package that comes out soon? We're not in talks with the company today on any new leave packages. If the PSP does extend, then most likely we'll be back in talks again for new leaves. Possibly we will see more leaves if the PSP is extended now, and then possibly also in April of 2021. One of the questions is, will there be more furloughs after October 1st? At this time, the company has told us that, that this furlough is based on the bookings for the fall, the winter, and next year. So they've looked at all of the bookings all the way through next summer, and that's why they furloughed 8,099. So we're not expecting another more furloughs this year. A lot of questions have been coming in about if the PSP does extend, what will we do? If it's in September, and pretty much right now that's what we're looking at. We think possibly after Labor Day, they will be back talking, negotiating for it. And we know there's talks even going on today. We don't have the plan yet, but I can tell you that if the PSP extends, we will do everything we can to make sure no one is furloughed. So we will figure it out. Please, if you are in the furlough, one of the furloughed flight attendants, don't worry. If the PSP extends in September, we will definitely figure it out and we will keep you on the property. That is everyone's goal, and that is the goal of the company at this point also. Let's see here. I'm trying to get through some of the general overview ones right off the bat. A lot of questions about, did we know the number? Did we know it was 14,000? No, we did not know. We found out on the same day everyone else did. Let's see here. Okay. Also, I'm seeing a lot of questions regarding United has come up with another plan to mitigate furloughs. I believe it was just last week that they came up with that plan. We've looked at their plan to mitigate furloughs. We've also looked at 2 other plans recently. Unfortunately, because of our systems and also because of our contract and the order that flight attendants are recalled in, none of the plans were viable for us without harming flight attendants on the property. Sometimes when you're trying to help one group, you harm another group. And that's what, when we're looking at any letter of agreement, we have to make sure we're not harming flight attendants on the property. So we did look at the United plan. Part of the concern with that was the recall order and how an option in could affect that. We looked at some others, and today we are not looking at anything as of today, but I will tell you we'll do anything we can to mitigate the furloughs. Let's see here. Okay, a lot. Will there be more furloughs when the 6 and 8 month leaves are ready to return? Larry, do you want to answer that one?
At this point, the company has given us no indication that there'll be further furloughs. The number that they came up with was taking that all into consideration as people come back off of leaves. So all that was taken into consideration, and that factors into the total number that they announced this week.
Okay, and it looks like we have someone who also is asking about part-time. Could we possibly share schedules? We did look at that also with our systems. As you all know, we have the ability to bid down all the way down to 40. So that was part of one of the options that we did look at also. Let's see here. Okay, Larry, I have another one for you. This is in our general. What is the percentage of IPD flights currently compared to the IPD flights a year ago?
So we are down, the company has said we are down 25, we're only flying 25% of our 2019 IPD flying. And I believe that equates to 12 or 13. Currently, we only have 13 IPD flights in operation as of now.
Hence why we're at where we're at. The demand is down, the bookings are down. when the number that was 7,000 to 8,000 was published and put out back in early July, they were expecting us to be 30% down for fall winter. Now instead, unfortunately, we're 50% down our schedule.
Correct.
So that's why the number did increase. Okay, let's see here. We're going to probably move to the next category here pretty soon. Here's another question. Is it possible that we could incur any pay and/or contract cuts after October 1st, 2020? I'm not sure if you saw it. It is still on our website. We sent out a hotline. I believe it was about a month and a half ago to 2 months ago. We joined with with other unions of other major carriers, and we all made a commitment that we were not going to be taking concessions. As many of you know, once one airline takes concessions, unfortunately, it's a domino effect. And we sent that out. Our airline is definitely aware that we are not planning on taking any concessions. We learned from that from our past, I can tell you that. And for those of you who are furloughed, I will say we want you to have a good job to come back to. And so that is a big part of why we will not take concessions. Some of the things that we lose in concessions are very hard to get back, and some we never get back. Okay, let's move on to government affairs. Okay, Paul, I think you can help us out with these questions. Will the APFA be organizing protests in Washington to urge an extension of the Aviation Payroll Support Program? If not, may we protest in uniform ourselves or with other aviation workers?
Sure. I think as Julie said, the focus of APFA and all unions on the Property American and aviation unions across the country, obviously is the extension of the payroll support program. That's definitely the focus of our government affairs department. We have 2 Washington-based flight attendants on that, Allie and Lori. They do amazing work for us on Capitol Hill. They put Julie and all of us in touch with senators and representatives and their staff. They really do a thorough, great job. Right now, I know that they're looking into, with the pandemic, there's a lot of travel and gathering restrictions in certain cities. I know that there are some in Washington, D.C. So we need to look into that before we plan any pickets and or protests. I do know that there are rallies planned. We've also been notified in the last few days of some last-minute pop-up pickets at senators' field offices in states where we're still pushing for support, such as North Carolina, Florida, states that senators aren't exactly backing what we would like them to. We'll be working with other aviation unions for sure within the coming weeks, so be sure to look out for hotline communications, social media updates, and in the meantime, keep calling, as Julie said, your representatives and senators, but we'll definitely be sending out more communication next week.
Thank you, Paul. And I think you kind of covered this, but this question is will we hire a lobbyist on our behalf to push the CARES Act with our dues that we have paid? We have 2 very aggressive government affairs flight attendants who do this morning, noon, and night. And I can tell you they are not only pushing this in Washington, they are reaching out to governors in every state, and they have your base presidents also helping. We've had some base presidents recently who've been doing interviews and have been in the newspapers because we're trying to get the message out through everyone. So we are not hiring a lobbyist. We've got Lori and Allie who are doing a fantastic job, and we will continue to do that. So I have another one. If the Payroll Act is passed, will it save all from furlough? Yes, it will. If the payroll support program is extended, we're asking for a clean extension of it. And a clean extension is with the same rules that it had the first time, which is no furloughs. So no one would be furloughed on the property if it is passed. And for American, that would mean grant money. That was approximately $5 billion the last time. And that is what we're asking for again. Grant money, not loan money. And Brian, you have something to add to that.
And if you are interested in following up with Allie or Lori, and you'd like to get in touch with them to find out more information how to participate in one of the pop-up pickups or be more engaged, you can email them at legislation@apfa.org.
Thank you, Brian. Okay. Okay, we're trying to cover some of the bigger topics right off the bat, and then we'll get into the more specifics very soon. Okay, next question. I'm sorry, Paul, to be picking on you, but this is a foreign national question, and I know that you've been working with us on this. Since we've been in office, since the first month in office, actually we've brought this to our company leaders, Doug Parker and Robert Isom. And we have been working on it ever since to basically proportionally reduce those bases, like the bases here are being reduced. So I've got a question for you. What are the exact plans for the national foreign nationals? Why are they keeping their jobs at all while Americans are losing theirs to facilitate foreign jobs, contract or not? Isn't that contract up? And why are we paying our taxes to help them keep their jobs?
Yeah, so just a brief summary. You probably remember the Latin America hotline that went out on July 30th. This process was reignited by this administration starting on July 28th, when Julie and the rest of the national leadership sent a letter to Doug Parker and Robert Isom requesting information and action regarding the Latin America bases. On July 30th, as I said, you received a hotline where we had provided a link to have you email Parker and Isom. And that did work to move the process along. They requested meetings. As of today, approximately 2,700 out of 27,000 flight attendants have taken part in that email campaign that was included in the hotline. As you know, the foreign nationals are all unionized. They have their own unions. They have union contracts that are still in effect. Obviously, APFA does not have the authority to end employment for another unionized work group or non-unionized for that matter. Saying that, we are in continued discussions with American to ensure that there are proportionate reductions in the Latin America bases. There is the prospect of sharing, unfortunately, sharing the pain between employee groups. We've made it very clear that furloughing the US-based flight attendants and not proportionately downsizing the Latin America bases, as has happened in the past, is unacceptable. Currently, today, American is in the process of offering the voluntary programs that we were offered, maybe not exactly the same, but similar voluntary programs to the Latin America bases. I believe those are open for a few more weeks. Once that process closes, American will be having meetings with leadership here at APFA. And I will definitely hold them to their promise of proportionate reductions. This is not the preferred outcome. Obviously, we're definitely focused on the issue. We'll be sure to update you as we move through the issue and know more about the voluntary and possible involuntary programs that will be happening at the Latin American bases. So stay tuned for further hotlines on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. All right, and I think there's just one last thing about the foreign nationals. All the CARES Act money from the previous payroll support program that was not used for any of the foreign national bases. That was only used for the bases in the United States. Okay, let's move on to seniority. And Linda, maybe you can help us out with a little bit of this. Let's walk through seniority first. As far as when you're furloughed, will you accrue occupational seniority?
Okay, first let me clarify. Occupational seniority is your bidding seniority, right? And that you will continue to accrue. That doesn't stop. It just continues to accrue. There is a different type of seniority that is called longevity seniority, which is for pay, is your pay stub and your vacation. If you look in your HI8, you see it labeled as classification. And that type of seniority does not continue to accrue while you are out on furlough. It will kick back in. It'll kind of just stop. It pauses. When you come back, it'll pick back up and continue on.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay, we've got some more seniority questions here. If you are on reserve for 6 more months and your furlough goes past that, and you are called back, are you still required to fill the 6 months of reserve? So I believe they're asking about their reserve rotation seniority.
So while you're out on furlough, your reserve rotation that's tied to your seniority will continue as if you were still serving reserve. So in this example, say if I was a straight reserve flight attendant and I was furloughed after 6 months. If I'm furloughed longer than 6 months, when I return, I'll be on the one off, one on reserve rotation because that will continue during my furlough.
Thank you, Brian.
May I just clarify? Just remember, your reserve rotation is tied into your bidding seniority. So whatever the bidding occupational seniority is, that determines what rotation you are on.
Thank you.
Just remember.
Okay, Brian, keep your mask off for a little bit. So I realize it's difficult. We've used masks with previous calls, and unfortunately, it's not as clear of a communication with you. So we apologize if we don't have our mask on the entire time. And that's why we don't have our masks on. Okay, when will we notice our bidding seniority change? In October or November? Also, can we have a system list of all VOP lists by seniority instead of by base? Should we see a drop in the number of reserves needed if the flying schedule is less? Oh my gosh, there's quite a few. I can help you out with the last one if you want, but I know you can handle all those.
So you'll actually see your bidding seniority change in September when you're bidding for the October bid month, because the flight attendants who would be furloughed will be taken out of the bidding pool. So you'll see on your dashboard that your number should change quite a lot when you're looking at when you're bidding.
Okay, let's see here. And the VOP, they would like a list, seniority list. I believe we will have that probably sometime this next week. Right now it's by base, but I believe they want to see it just by seniority. And I think that came out the last time, right? So it just takes, we can always ask for that. So we'll make sure to get that out there for you. And then should we see a drop in the number of reserves needed if the flying schedule is less? We have seen that, right, Linda? We've seen that for the last 5 months.
And remember, the number, it's a percentage, it's probably going to stay the same, but if you have 18% of 5,000 people, that is larger than 18% of 2,000 people. So in that respect, yes, the reserve numbers are going to go down, and it's still something that Manning Planning is going to address to see how many there are needed. But please do remember, the reserve numbers might be going down, but if we lose a lot of people that are on the one-on, one-off rotation, we will have a lot of people that come onto reserve that are on the one-on, three-off rotation. So the seniority might increase on that one.
Thank you, Linda. And I believe what has been said to us is we do not have anyone on straight reserve, and we have no one on one off either. So everyone will be 1 on 3 off from this point, at this point. Thank you. Okay. How will we know our seniority within our base if we are not furloughed? Brian, you want to take that?
So you'll be able to see what your seniority is within your bidding pool at your base, whether you're a reserve flight attendant or a line holder flight attendant on your PBS dashboard when you go to bid each month. And if you'd like to look at a total number of your seniority by base, you can go into rep roster and search by your base, and then you can organize it by seniority, and you can get a sense of where you fall within your base for the total number of flight attendants at your base.
Thank you. Okay, and we've got, if you do not accept the recall but return later on, do you lose bidding seniority? I know you do not. So this would be your occupational seniority, and no, you would not lose your occupational seniority if you do not return to recall when you're called upon. And when we get to recall, we'll kind of explain that a little bit better. That option that our flight attendants have for recall. Okay, all right, that was that. All right, Okay, let's move on. We're going to go to some questions about furlough pay period, right? And the look back. Thank you, Brian. I know you're helping out with some of those. Okay, and I believe actually the first question for the look back for furlough pay average, how will the no-fly months of April and May for flight attendants be viewed? And actually this question I believe is about flight attendants who had lost their entire month and just had pay protection. So you either had 71 hours or 75 hours of pay protection, or your PBS schedule minus the 5 hours. And so whatever your pay protection was, if it was 75 hours, that is what would be used for the look back in those months. Okay, and what date is being used for furlough pay? So the look back is October 2019 to September of 2020. And I believe we did have some questions come in about the look back. One of them was asking us to go to the company and request that the company give our flight attendants an option for what's in our contract of the 12-month look back, or going back prior to when COVID-19 hit us and looking back at that time frame. We did have some discussions with the company a while ago about this. Of course, what we really wanted was for the flight attendants who were furloughed to have this option. We felt that would be most fair, but unfortunately the company was, they were willing to go one or the other, but not both, for administrative purposes, let's put it that way. But so we had to make a decision if it was going to be by the contractual 12-month look back from the date you're furloughed, and that is the decision that was made. But we did try to get the best of, so that for you, you would have two options. Okay, let's see. Okay, Brian, can you help them with how they calculate their furlough pay period?
So if you'd like an easy way to calculate your furlough pay, if you log on to Crew Portal and you click on the button that says FOS screens and you pull up your HISK screens, you can get an easy snapshot of the hours worked over the past months that will be used to calculate the furlough pay. And you'll take the 12 months prior to October 2020, and then you'll average those together and then divide by 12, and that would be the average that you would be getting per the contractual furlough pay period. And during the furlough pay period, the pay will be broken up into a mid-month and end-of-month paycheck and split evenly. So if my average was 80 hours, you would be receiving 40 hours on the mid-month and 40 hours on the end-of-month paycheck.
Okay, but let's go back to that, because their October 15th paycheck is actually their hours from September, right? And so then their first furlough pay period check, I believe, is October 30th. Is that right?
Correct.
Right.
31st.
That is. So, so then the next month, I mean, their month would be start really from the 15th in a sense. Okay. And I know in our guide, we have a really good description of that. So if you have more questions and you want to see that, you can find that in our guide. We've got, is the furlough pay period paid out in a lump sum or in increments? I think we kind of just talked about that, but Kelly, do you want to talk about anything else we missed with that? We have Kelly Hagan on also. I forgot to announce her because she's not here in the room with us. She is a negotiator and she's on the phone with us. Is there anything we
No, Julie, you guys nailed it. It's paid out. It's not lump sum.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a disability question, then we'll come back to that. All right. Oh, and Brian, I don't remember you mentioning, are there going to be premiums included in that look back? Red flag pay?
So premiums will not be included in the look back. It would be just hard flight hours. So red flag would not qualify. Lead pay, galley pay would also not be calculated in your furlough pay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so if you were You just made me think of something like that. No pay. Sorry, I thought about it and then it just escaped me. Okay, I know. Pay protected months. So you'll see your pay protected months in your HISK. Okay, and so if it was a 75-hour pay protected month, you'll see that there. All right, great. Thank you. Okay, Kelly, how will furlough payments be calculated if previously on medical leave and applied for PVLOA, which began after the medical leave ended?
Okay, so as you guys mentioned earlier, the 12-month look back is a hard look back. So it's from October 19th or October 2019 to September 2020. So if you have any months in there that have 0 or low pay in them, whether it be because of a medical leave or because you took one of the paid leaves, that average will get drawn down because you take those total hours and you divide them by 12.
Okay, so if I was on a 19-hour leave for 3 months, oh, that sounds great. They would get 19 hours per month, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right. Let's see here. Okay, we have this question. What is the furlough pay period and how long does it last for? Brian, can you direct them on where to find that?
So if you're looking to calculate how long you'll be receiving a furlough pay and how in your pay period, you can go to section 23C13, and there is a chart that would detail how long you'll be receiving furlough pay for. If you've been, if you have a year of service or more, you're entitled to half a month furlough pay, and it will increase by your year of service based on that.
Okay, and so as far as your pay for that furlough pay period, what if you had a step increase in the middle of the furlough pay period? Can you answer that? You know, so your the last step increase for your entire pay period would have to occur before October 3rd, right?
Correct. Once the effective date of the furlough passes, your pay step increase will freeze until you're recalled to duty.
And I think this question goes along with it. And Kelly, I see, it says, does occupation or classification date determine your rate of pay? And when is AA going to stop pay raises, September 1st or October 3rd?
So just to build off of what Brian just said, those pay increases will cease after October 3rd. So if you do have a pay step after that date, you are not going to see that raise reflected. And where you're going to look for your pay increase to figure out what it is you would look at your HI-8 and you would look at your classification seniority, because that is your longevity. So that deals with everything with pay.
All right, thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Brian. I'm going through this. It looks like we've answered pretty much all of around the furlough pay. Brian, go ahead.
So there's a question. So say, for example, my pay increase is in November and your furlough date is October 3rd. When you return to service, you will just have that 1 month after you return to service to graduate to your next pay step increase.
Great. Thank you, Brian.
May I add something, please?
Mm-hmm.
Brian was describing how you can figure out your furlough pay by looking at the HISK. When you look at it, there is going to be 2 columns. One is going to say pay projection and the other one is going to say guarantee. And you will use the number, the greater between the 2 numbers. Because it could be on a reserve month that you only flew 50 hours, so the pay projection will have 50, but your guarantee was 75. You use the greater of the 2.
Great. Thank you, Linda. Okay, let's move on to carryover. All right, let's talk a little bit about the carryover. So if a furloughed flight attendant has a carryover that goes into the 1st and 2nd, are they required to fly that trip?
Yes, you are required to fly a carryover trip up into the effective date of your furlough.
Okay, and if you're on reserve, the last day of September, could you get a trip that goes into into October?
Yes, this month takes precedence over next month, and you would be legal and available to fly if you are assigned a carrier trip from September into October.
Only for the 1st and 2nd though, that's it. And if a furloughed flight attendant does not have a trip on the 1st or 2nd, are they paid for those days?
Yep. So if you do not have a carryover trip on the 1st or 2nd of October, you'll be eligible to get a daily rate of $217 per day for a total of 4 hours and 34 minutes on the 1st and the 2nd. And then if you only have a carryover trip onto the 1st, you would get the daily rate of $217 on the 2nd. And this would go on top of the furlough pay for October.
Yes. Okay. All right, I think that covers everything with carryover. Okay. All right, let's move on to our next topic, which is benefits in IOD. Glad that Kathy and Billy are here with us for this. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so the first question, Kathy, is since the potential furloughs are effective 10/2, will our health insurance continue until the end of October?
You actually will have furlough pay benefits during your furlough pay period. So yes, that is the answer to that question is yes. And you get 18 months of coverage from the October 3rd forward. The paid furlough portion are active rates, and after that you'll be solicited for COBRA to possibly enroll in that if you'd like. If you're young enough, you can go on to your parents, you can do a life event. October 3rd, a life event window will be open if you want to make changes to your benefits. You can drop the coverage, downsize any, and you can change your FSA. You can do that as well now. So yes, you will have coverage.
So I know we have some flight attendants who actually do not have any furlough pay period because they are less than a year. So for those flight attendants, they would be able to elect COBRA starting on October 3rd, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, so they have between their active rate medical care, if let's use an example. Let's say I have 3 months of furlough pay period. And so I would get 3 months of medical benefits at the active rate. And then since COBRA started on day 1, I would actually have 15 more months of COBRA if I elect to take COBRA.
Absolutely.
And if I elect to take COBRA, I have to pay the full COBRA rate for it, right? So they will have that option. But if they have other benefits, either through their spouse or through their parents, then they can not take the COBRA, of course, and go on to those benefits.
Other coverage.
Okay, great. Yeah, I know we've been saying that, but I realized as we were talking about it that we have actually flight attendants that don't have any furlough pay period. So just wanted to clarify that. Okay, and Kathy, what happens to the family leave hours in an involuntary furlough?
Well, your hours are going to, let's say you have 1,000 hours of today. Each month, your hours are going to fall off that you're on furlough. So you potentially, if you come back in spring, you could be eligible to put in for a family leave because those hours it's going to act as if you're on a leave of absence current. And so your hours will fall each month based on your previous.
Because you're not flying,
yeah,
right? So if you're not flying, you'll have no hours added into your family leave bank in a sense, right?
Correct.
So you'll have to build that back up when you come back to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's a second part to that we haven't, but one of the questions is, can I apply for a family leave, an intermittent family leave in September prior to going on furlough? There's nothing that would prohibit that because you potentially could be back in 3 months. And if you want an intermittent family leave available when you return and not have to mess with it, you can do that.
Okay. Good to know. Okay, we have someone asking if they can decline COBRA insurance, and
Absolutely.
yes.
If you don't pay, you don't get it. You do not have to elect COBRA.
Okay, all right, we have someone asking about all the benefits. Do we want to talk about the FSA and what happens with the FSA if you're furloughed?
Right. So if you currently are enrolled and have an FSA elected, you will could be able to access those benefits during your paid furlough portion. I would recommend using them up if you're not planning to elect COBRA, because those benefits are then they're lost essentially. So if you elect COBRA and you want to continue your FSA through that, you can. It will be post-tax dollars, which is not an issue. But if you have not spent all your money yet and don't think that you can, elect it in COBRA, and then you can spend it through the end of the year, because your money will not roll over as it does now. If you're an active employee, it won't roll over in 2021.
Okay, and I know we had this question, it looks like we have a couple people asking for this, as far as the enrollment, right? This enrollment period is this October, right? Can they make changes in this enrollment period for, especially if they're, let's just say they're going to stay on COBRA?
Right. Yeah, that absolutely. You can participate in the annual enrollment. That is certainly, you can make a life event to make changes immediately. That's available to you October 3rd, because those are going to affect the remainder of the year, or you can participate in annual enrollment to make your election for 2021.
And when they come back?
When you come back, you're going to be offered a life event. That way you can re-enroll in your benefits and pick back up as if you never left.
So they can, the good thing is they can change them. Let's say they're on the highest plan,
Right.
they can go down to the lowest plan, and then their COBRA would be less.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And then we didn't mention the HSA.
Yeah.
They actually, that plan follows you when so once the furlough pay ends and you still have $500 or whatever, and you still have access to it. It's not the same as an FSA.
Okay, and we've got some questions about maternity. Let me ask this one and see if we're, what would my return look like if I was pregnant when I am recalled? I imagine I would accept my position back at American and go out on maternity leave when my doctor deems it medically necessary. Would there be a set amount of time I would need to be active before that could happen? And would I immediately be eligible for the flight attendant post-birth short-term disability?
So you sounds like you actually have all the answers. Yes, which is good. So if you are pregnant and are able to come back and work, you can accept the recall, continue flying. Or if you're not able to work, your doctor has already written you out, you can still accept the recall, go to the maternity status, and be eligible for the maternity disability plan.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, Belia, we've got a couple IOD questions here. And what happens if you're on an IOD and you get furloughed?
Well, your claim would remain open, and you will receive payments from Cedric until your doctor clears you to full duty without any restrictions, and that also applies to an independent medical examiner should Cedric send you to one. If the IME doctor returns you to work, that will also end your pay with Cedric. Or also if you've reached maximum medical improvement, and your doctor and or the independent medical examiner can actually put you at that level in the IOD. Now, as far as salary continuance, it will end. It is a 6-month salary continuance. So if you are due this salary continuance, it will resume once you return to work if you are still on an IOD. Now, also, any furlough pay, Cedric will offset those payments. So you'll receive the check from American, but Cedric may reduce your weekly or biweekly benefits, but the laws vary from state to state, so you'll have to call your adjuster to see if that applies to you, or if you have an attorney. Since if you hire an attorney, Cedric will not communicate with you, so you'll have to go through your attorney.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, and I know we have a disability question here. Hang on one second, I think I just scrolled past it. Okay. Please further explain, can we use our short-term disability when we are furloughed? And if not, why?
Your short-term plans are optional coverages. You elected to participate in that plan. If for some reason you broke your leg or something in September and you got an open claim, you would continue the benefit. So those who, so technically the optional coverage is going to stop, but if you have a claim pending or active claim, you will continue to receive the benefit for the allotted time of the plan.
Okay. Thanks, Kathy. All right. Trying to go through some of these and see if we've got some different questions. Can I still apply for family leave before I leave in October? You already answered that, yes. That's Ben's, okay. All right, we'll come back to those if we have time, but it looks like we've got quite a few more questions in there. Okay, let's see. Answered carryover. All right, we're going to move on to vacation and sick questions. Let's go to the tab. Okay, on October 1st, we will have worked 9 months of the year. How is vacation accrual counted for those who are furloughed? If recalled next year, will we still be able to bid for vacation?
So that's a great question. So as of right now, the company has stated that there will be an election form to pay out both your accrued and if you have scheduled vacation during your furlough period. And then we have also followed up with the company to see what would happen if a flight attendant who has accrued vacation through October but has recalled after the AVA bidding election window has closed, what would be the process for them to use their accrued vacation days in 2021.
Okay, so we'll get back to them on that. We'll put it out probably on the Q&A, right, and in the document once we have that answer. Okay, we have a couple questions here. Flight attendants that have vacation in October, and will they get paid for them?
So if you are a flight attendant who will be furloughed and you have vacation scheduled in October, November, December, January, February, March, you would have the option to either have your vacation paid out or carried forward for when you return to duty.
Okay, and let's talk about sick time as long as we're talking about vacation. We might as well go to sick time. What happens to the sick time for the flight attendants that are furloughed?
So any sick time that you have accrued up until the point of furlough will freeze upon your return to service. So if I have 20 hours and I subsequently become furloughed, those 20 hours will be waiting for me when I'm recalled to service.
Okay, we've answered the seniority question, right, as far as the pay for vacation. I see that here. Looks like a lot of the questions are all about vacation payout. Okay, we have a question here about bankruptcy. Regarding the sick time, what will happen to the frozen sick time if AA enters bankruptcy while on furloughed?
As with anything in a bankruptcy, the items that are up for that have value will be determined by a bankruptcy court lawyer. And at that point, it would be determined whether the sick time hours would be able to be paid out to the flight attendants.
And it's accrued sick time. You accrued it. I mean, you earned that sick time, right? Let's see here. There's quite a few of those. Understandable. We'll get more clarification on that. I'm trying to think if we can add anything more to that as far as bankruptcy and sick time. Many of us have been through bankruptcy. What I do recall from our past with this is what happened is we accrued less time for years going forward. We never lost our accrued time, but our accrual became less per month. So I think accrued time. We'll put that out in a Q&A, but I think we're okay with stating that you keep your accrued time. Okay, let's see here. Anything else on vacation we're missing? I think we've pretty much covered vacation and sick. Okay, I know we're moving on to our next category of benefits. Actually, while we're talking about vacation and sick, why don't we talk about the banked points that they have right now?
So if you have earned any bank points by working over a critical period, those bank points will freeze and be waiting for you for when you return to service as well.
And what about the uniform dollars?
So your uniform dollars will also freeze and be available for you when you return.
Thank you. And I know we may have flight attendants who have points on the attendance policy. Larry, do you want to address that?
Yes, the company maintains that those points will be frozen during your furlough. We don't agree with that, and we'll have further discussions with the company on that topic.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's move on to travel. We've had lots of questions about travel, and once again, the guide that we have, it makes it very clear what benefits you have with travel. So let's we can go over the basics of travel, but let's talk about some of these, get into maybe a few other questions about it. The first one is, if our badges and ability to get into JetNet are taken away from us, how would we book our D2R non-rev trip?
So there'll be a transition website that will be available to furloughed flight attendants, much like the website that's available to our retired flight attendants. You'll have access to the travel planner, so you'll be able to check in for flights, look up flights, and basically see what we're able to see today.
Okay, and Brian, how long do they have the D2R travel?
You'll maintain your travel benefits for the 24 months after the furlough effective date.
Okay, and can they use the jump seat?
You unfortunately cannot use the jump seat if you are a furloughed flight attendant.
And another question here is, will the furloughed flight attendants have the ID90 Z fare benefits?
No, furloughed flight attendants will not have access to ID90 or Z fare. The Z benefits are a company negotiated program, and furloughed flight attendants would not have access to those.
And so for the flight attendants, how are they going to book? Did you go through that already? Do you want to go through it again?
So there'll be a transition website that will be set up for furloughed flight attendants, and you'll have access to a travel planner. You'll also be able to see your pay stub, and there'll be a further communication on what with a list of contact number and websites available for use for furloughed flight attendants.
Okay, and I'll give you a little break because I see Kelly's going to help us out with these too. I was just, damn it, it's easy because you're sitting right here. Okay, Kelly, let's see here, we've got a few for you. Can our registered companions have the travel benefits? And actually, can you expand on who does have the travel benefits?
Yes, so pretty much you're going to have the exact same travel benefits that you have in today's world. It's just that the priority is going to change. It's just going to be a D2R. So your registered companion, your domestic partner, your parents, your dependents, your buddy passes, you're still going to have all of that stuff. It's just going to be the priority. You're also going to have your 6 D1s per calendar year. So it's pretty much like it is today, just different priority.
Okay, and here's a question. Is there any charge for flying as a D2R status?
Just like a D2, there is not a charge for it unless you do like international flights, something that generates like taxes or landing fees, transit fees, something like that. You would be responsible for that, just like you are in today's world.
Great, thank you. Okay, and Brian, this question is, and this says it's not just for furloughed flight attendants. Would you please address IDs that are set to expire? You may check in at the airport with other picture IDs. Some flight attendants think they can't even travel to base with an expired ID. To be clear, some flight attendants think they're not able to fly into base to pick up their new ID.
So the important thing to remember here is that our employee badge that we use, we're not able to mail it due to security concerns. You must go into your crew room to pick those up. You are still able to use a government ID like your passport or your driver's license to go through security, but unfortunately, if your badge is set to expire, you will have to coordinate with your FSM or local MOD to be able to fly into base to pick that up.
And what date does the status change?
Your,
To D2R.
your status changes to a D2R on the effective date of the furlough, which would be October 3rd.
Okay, and I see we're running out of time, so I want to get to some of these important ones. We have a lot. We haven't talked about recall yet. So let me just briefly go through the letter of agreement that was signed for recall. It does have the ability for the company to cancel a leave. But what it also states in it is that if we get to a point where the company might think they might want to cancel a leave, they would meet and discuss it with the APFA, and that is in the LOA. So the APFA is very clear when it comes to any cancellation of any voluntary furloughs, that we should first, of course, always recall all of our involuntary furloughs first, and then cancel any leaves. The leaves, as far as canceling any of them, if you want to read the letter of agreement and what it states, is it does not break it down into they can cancel the 15-month, and then they can cancel the 18-month, and then the 24-month. They are all one package in a sense, and if they're going to draft an inverse order of seniority, they'll offer first in seniority order and then draft an inverse order of seniority. It is the most junior person of all three, 15, 18, and 24 months. It is not, they can just cancel the 15-month leaves a month early. So just wanted to clarify that for all of you. Let's get into recall a little bit more. So a lot of these are that question about who goes first. Is it the furloughed or is it the on leave? I think I've answered that. The circumstances, I will tell you, since Tuesday, everything we've heard from the company is we don't want to furlough and we want to get them back as soon as we can. We will remind them of that if this conversation ever is had, that we need to recall our involuntary furlough flight attendants first. Okay, here's a question. How does a recall work? Could I be recalled to a different base? Kelly, do you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. So yes, you can be recalled to a base that was not the base that you exited from. If you do accept that recall, if there are still people that are involuntarily furloughed junior to you, and you accept that recall, you're going to get a paid move for it. If you do not accept that recall because there's people that are still junior to you that are involuntarily furloughed, then they would keep going down the list. And then eventually they're going to come back to you and you're going to be the last person, and then you will have to make a decision whether you're going to come back or not. And then you would just be bidding on which bases have vacancies at that time. And then you would also be eligible for a priority of return as well to get back to your original base.
Okay, and we'll get into displacements here next, but Kelly, I think the first part of it, and I think I asked both questions quickly. So how's a flight attendant going to know they're being recalled?
Okay, so how that happens is the company is actually going to send you, they're going to send you a signature required letter in the mail. It's going to be a second day delivery service. Once you have received that, you are required to notify American your intent on what you want to do within 7 days. This is why it is so very important that you keep your address updated not only with American but also with the union. Very important, that piece.
Thank you. Okay, and how long can I be out on furlough? Well, I think I can answer this one actually. I can tell you the meeting that we had with the company the other day. They are not expecting any recalls prior to next spring. At this point, they're looking at the bookings for the fall, the winter, and the early next year. And they're saying they don't see any recalls until the possibility would be next spring. There is, it's hard to really say because this is all dependent upon the demand, right? If the demand comes back, then we could be recalling everyone soon. But there's many factors that go into that. I can tell you I was furloughed many years ago, and I was out for almost 2 years. It seemed like a very long time. I can remember that, and but at this point, I can barely remember it because it was so long ago. But it's hard to say. It just depends upon what's happening with the demand and how quickly it comes back. Let's see here. Okay. Many questions about who's going to be called back first, the leaves or furloughs. I believe we answered that for you. Let's see. Okay, what about a transfer? I deleted a transfer that I received prior to the transfers being offered. Will transfers be offered again once we come back from furlough? The transfer process is in our contract, right? We have vacancy transfers as well as mutual transfers. Every month, even if there's not any vacancies, then we would run the mutuals. So yes, there will be transfers when you get back from furlough. Do we still have callback rights if the company declares bankruptcy? Yes, you do. We have past practice with this. We have airlines here who we've been in bankruptcy before, and everyone still remained on the furlough list and was recalled from that. No one was let go. Okay. If you do not accept the recall but return later on, do you lose bidding seniority? No, you do not. I might have answered that one earlier. I'm not sure about what is seniority. I think I've seen it a couple times here. Okay. Okay, lots of questions about if we're recalled in the spring, how many? It's too hard for us to say at this point. It really, like I said, it depends on the demand and the bookings. Okay, let's move on to our next topic, which is unemployment. And Kelly has become one of our unemployment specialists here at the union. We have on our website a lot of unemployment information, and we made it easy for you to find it today. It's also at the ticker tape at the top, and we'll get to these questions, but there's a lot of information that if you end up needing answers to your questions about unemployment, please look there. All right, Kelly, when furloughed, a question on unemployment benefits asked if still employed with the company, do we answer yes or no? Okay,
the way that the states ask that question, pay very close attention to when you're filling out that initial claim. Because you are going to be filing as a laid off status, you are still an employee, but keep in mind that technically you're still not attached to payroll anymore once that furlough pay period has concluded. You will need to go ahead and file for your unemployment starting the effective date of your furlough, which is going to be the October 3rd date. So go ahead and get that filing in, and then all the states pretty much ask, are you receiving severance pay during that initial claim filing? So you would need to answer that question, yes, and then that would be the monies that you're receiving for the duration of that furlough pay period.
Okay, and I see here you covered quite a few of the questions there. You said 5 states. What states are those for severance unemployment? And can you explain that a little better? I'm not sure I completely understand where that's coming from.
Yes. Yes. So each state sets their own rules and regulations on how they're going to administrate unemployment. And some states look at severance pay as a support payment, as something that you earned previously, so it does not count against your unemployment, which would be, it will not reduce your weekly benefits. Of those states that do not use that money to measure against your unemployment, it's California, Illinois, Missouri, North Carolina through an executive order, so it's not a normal action for them, and Massachusetts, but only if you were a VOP person. So if you are just a straight furlough person, it will measure against it, but a VOP, it will not. Any other base state, you do have to report it, and it will be measured against your weekly benefit.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's see here. I think we've covered most of the unemployment. Is there anything else that we're missing, Kelly?
I don't believe so. I would just highly suggest for folks just to check out the unemployment portion of the apfa.org website. As was stated earlier, it is on the ticker that is on the home page. We've got a contact us form on there. We've got an email address on there. We do really quick turnaround times. We're pretty versed in all the different base states. You know, ask us early so we can help you even before you fill out that initial claim, because you may not even know which state you need to file in, and we can help you with that. Thank you.
Kelly, I know Kelly and another one of our APFA reps, David Arnett, have been working tirelessly to help all of our leave flight attendants who've had some issues with the unemployment and to get claim money. Do you have a total for us, Kelly, of how much money you've been able to help our flight attendants get from unemployment?
Well, we've been covered up lately, so we haven't run the addition on it, but last time I checked, it was over $400,000, and we have not lost an appeal yet.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all your work on that. I know it's really important. I can remember at the beginning of the leaves, we had so many frustrated flight attendants, especially in Dallas. I don't know why so many in Dallas, but it was actually the company who was filling out the wrong answer, and then it ended up denying the claim. So I know Kelly was able to clear those up, and thank you for all the work on that. Okay, let's move into displacements. I think we talked a little bit about them, but not quite, not about all of it. Okay, first off, let's talk about when, what happened recently, yesterday, I think it was, I'm losing track of days, Tuesday. So we found out the number of VOPs, we found out the number of leaves, and there's quite a few different leaves. That's why it's been hard to really have an overall number of what your base is at today. We also know the number of furloughed flight attendants at your base, and then we had transfers awarded after after the leaves and VOPs were all awarded, and the furloughs were confirmed. So right now, I know there's a lot of questions about what's the size of your base after all of this. And that information will come out, and it will be out in the next couple of days. But I can tell you that there were 3 bases that the company had talked about quite a bit, and we had talked about it in our town halls also. It was Miami, LA, and Phoenix that had quite a large overage, around 800 to 1,000 flight attendants. And Miami and LA at this point are pretty much right size with what just occurred this last week. With Phoenix, it still has a bit more flight attendants than what they had wanted to decrease it by. That doesn't mean that Phoenix is going to get displacements, and I can tell you the company has said there will be no displacements until the beginning of next year. So when we talk about displacements, we are talking about the beginning of next year, and we really feel it will be very limited amount of displacements as far as the bases. I know I've, on my flights, talked to a lot of flight attendants going back and forth from Sacramento who are Dallas based, and they're worried, they've been very worried about getting displaced. And I said, I don't think that you should be concerned about that. That's right now what we do know, and we've seen this, is the company can move the flying around. So really, it's expensive to displace flight attendants. There's moving expenses that go along with that. So it's not that I don't want you to worry about it, but I will say that we have to wait till we see all the numbers at all the bases and see where we've landed, in a sense, as far as anybody who is not furloughed being displaced. As far as those that are furloughed and coming back, it will depend upon where you're based at as to whether or not you could be displaced and the size of your base at that time. Okay, hopefully that helped a little bit. Okay, so I think I answered that one. Okay. Pie chart. Okay, it looks like there's a lot of flight attendants who really want to see the big picture. We want to see a pie chart, all the bases, the size of it, what we want to, what the company's size is of that base. I can tell you the November transfers, the bidding timeframe is open right now. And I believe that, Brian, you can help me out with this date. I believe that's going to be awarded on the 31st of this month. And they're putting out the numbers either today or tomorrow. They did put them out as to the minimum number that they are allowing into the base. They're still figuring out the overall base sizes, and as kind of I sound like a broken record, but a lot of this is dependent upon our international travel and when it comes back and how much of it comes back. So even the size that we might be in a year or two, a base may change eventually. So did you have anything on that? The numbers are out today, right? And so we'll see more openings probably throughout the rest of this year. Okay, let's see what else we have here. I know we're kind of running out of time, so I'm sorry, I'm kind of trying to group all of these questions into one. Okay, priority of return. How about if we talk about that a little bit? Kelly or Brian, one of you want to explain what a priority of a return is if you happen to be displaced out of your base? So let's just say you're a furloughed flight attendant, and when you're recalled, you are not recalled to the base you left. Does one of you want to take that on? Kelly, do you want to take that on?
Yeah, I can do that. So let's just say hypothetically, I am based in Miami. I've now been furloughed. They have recalled me back from furlough, and they're like, hey, we need you to go to Dallas. So at that point, I am now a Dallas-based flight attendant, and then I have 30 days to file my priority of return. And what that means is I want to get back to Miami, and I want to exercise my seniority within the group of priority return people to go back to Miami. So I fill out that form. I'm going to redo my star 3 index and put Miami as my first choice. And then as vacancies become available in Miami, they will run the priority return flight attendants first, and then they will do it for the rest of the system.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I know we had a question about if you were out on a leave, and I'm trying to find it here. Brian, do you know which one I'm talking about? If you're out on a leave and if you could end up being displaced over someone that was furloughed.
So there have been a fair amount of questions about asking if you are taking one of the EVLOAs and you're out for, let's say, 18 months, and if you could be displaced by a junior flight attendant who's being recalled to your base. You'll only be displaced from your base if the displacements reach up into your seniority. You will not be displaced from your base if there's a junior person returning. They will not be able to kick you out of your base.
Thank you. So it's completely by seniority. Thank you. All right, Eric, we've got a few questions regarding union dues.
Yes.
Are you required to pay union dues while you're out on furlough?
So while you're out on furlough, your dues obligation, you're exempt from that. You have an option to pay your union dues. If you do, you'll be able to vote, attend union activities, meetings. However, if you don't pay, you'll still continue to receive a bill from APFA. And while you're furloughed, when those dues will accrue, and when you return upon recall, then those dues will be forgiven.
Thank you. And as far as union dues, while they're being paid during the furlough pay period, their union dues will still be taken out,
Yes,
correct?
so any paychecks you receive from American, including the furlough pay period, union dues will be deducted from those paychecks.
Okay, and I see one. If I'm furloughed, will I have to pay a reinitiation fee if I am recalled to the line?
No, you will not have to pay a reinitiation fee if you are furloughed. However, if you resign the union or you left for management or transferred to another department and you hadn't paid that reinitiation fee yet, then it still will be due.
Okay, and is it possible to have AA deduct my past due balance from my paycheck?
No, so that's a good question. If you have a past due balance, American will not deduct that from your paycheck. They will only deduct current dues. So you would need to call APFA, or you can pay on the website. That's the easiest way to do it, apfa.org. You can pay via credit card there, or you can call us in with your credit card number and pay any past dues.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, and I know we've gone over our time, so it looks like we've got one or two more. I want to get into training a little bit. And so, Brian, can we talk about, and it looks like we've got a lot of questions for flight attendants who are furloughed, and they've got CQ in September. Do they need to go to CQ in September?
So I would strongly encourage flight attendants who have CQ in September to go to CQ. We are still actively fighting for a clean PSP renewal, and so you'd want to be able to ensure that you're able to bid and be active in October should that be extended. So you would not want to put yourself in a position where you have gone QI by not going to CQ.
And what about the RBES part? Like we have someone who looks like they have 777 training in September and they're being furloughed. Should they go to that?
I would really encourage you to attend the equipment training for the same reason. You'd want to be able to put yourself in a position to be legal and available and awarded a schedule through PBS.
And can they go to training while they are furloughed?
No, you are not able to elect to go to any voluntary training while you're on furlough,
Thank you.
nor required to go to training while.
Okay. Okay, it looks like we are almost there. A couple quick questions. Why was the July 23rd, 2020 seniority list not updated after the last round of leaves and retirements? The seniority list that came out was updated with those that took the lump sum payout, correct, Brian? The flight attendants who are still on the 12-month payout for the VF are still on the list. And then do we have any idea when they're going to update the seniority list of it? No? Okay. All right, thank you. All right. It looks like we've gotten a lot of questions about people who want to take leaves. So I will definitely share that with the company. Based on both of our town halls today, I've seen this quite a bit through a lot of the questions. And believe we are just about there and out of time. I know we didn't get to all of your questions. Brian, do you have something you'd like to?
Well, just as we wrap up, if there's any questions that you have after the town hall, or if we weren't able to get to any of the questions, please send your questions to our furlough email. It's rif@apfa.org, or you can go onto the APFA website and contact our rep and select the involuntary furlough option and have your question answered that way if you are unable to have your question answered today.
Great, thank you, Brian. I see one last question I'm going to answer because I can relate to it. I was a company transfer. I worked in another department prior to being a flight attendant with AA, and I was wondering if my company seniority would displace me to my previous work group and enable to avoid furlough. Would I be able to return as a flight attendant and also keep my pay if I'm able to go back to previous work group? Unfortunately, that is not the contract we have today here. I can relate to that. That happened to me many years ago. I was a flight attendant furloughed and I went back to reservations, but that was a contract many years ago. So that is not today. So I'm sorry, but that is not an option. Okay, I know we still have some. We're going to kind of go through them. We got a lot of questions in. If we missed yours, we're really sorry. But we will update our RIF guide online. We will also put out some more Q&As. We'll look at having another town hall, possibly in a week or two, depending upon where we're at. Hopefully our next town hall will be when the payroll support program is extended, and we'll be discussing what we're going to do. That would be a really great town hall to have. In closing, we understand how devastating this is to those of you who are on the furlough list. We have quite a few flight attendants who work at our union who are on that furlough list. And we know Tuesday was a very difficult day. We know there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of sadness, but please know that we are working every day to try and figure out what we can do to prevent this furlough. And if we are unable to do that, to get you back as soon as we possibly can. What I want to leave you with is please, 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 you have to call your congressional representatives. We have made a difference. We can see it because we have bipartisan support. We have over 16 Republicans who signed on and said they would support the bill, the aviation industry being in the bill. We know we've got support on both sides of the aisle, and we know that all those calls and emails made the difference. So don't stop. We don't want them to forget about us. We want them to get back to the table, negotiate, and get this PSP extended. So thank you very much for your time today. I know we went over. We will try and get out as much information as we can to you to help you through this time frame. And more importantly than anything, please stay safe. And we thank you for the job you've been doing, especially in this very hard time of flying. We understand how difficult it is to be on that airplane today and dealing with a very different situation than we have in the past. So thank you. That's it for us. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.